good evening, everyone.
Okay, so today
Uh,
today we have invited Mr. Chhatra Karki. He is the founding president of Nepal Forum of Science Journalists, and he has more than 20 years of experience in science journalism in different newspaper and different forums in Nepal. And he covered climate change, environment, and so many other topics. And we are really delighted to welcome him on our series of Scientia writing internship. Thank you, Mr. Karki. Please, you may start.
Thank you so much, Fauzi. Namaste, good evening. As Fauzi introduced me, I am Chhatra Karki, founding president and program director of Nepal Forum of Science Journalists. Today, I am going to share my thoughts about scientific paper versus popular writing. I think this topic might be interesting for you. Uh, okay. First of all, as an undergraduate student, you are aware about scientific papers. Basically, scientists, maybe natural scientists, social scientists, they will produce scientific papers. In case of scientific papers, there must be new knowledge, construction of new knowledge after experimentation, after intensive field research as well. Scientific papers, it is scholarly communication, and scientific papers, it will appear in academic journals, books, dissertation, means we call it thesis as well. While talking about scientific papers, it should be published in, mostly published in scientific journals. That journals should be peer review, well edited. There must be structured content. Peer review means while you submit your scientific manuscript, that manuscript will be reviewed by the some expert, group of expert, that is called peer review. And while talking about scientific paper, there will be formal language. It could be academic as well as formal language. It is difficult to understand. There might be technical terminology. That's why scientific papers are different than journalistic writing. I have been working as a journalist over 20 years. I am not academician, but what I am doing in Nepal, how to make scientific articles understandable for common people. That is the duty of science writer and science journalist. Then I don't go more about history of these scientific journals. It has started 1665 in European country. Later on, Royal Society of UK published scientific papers. Then USA, uh, Asian countries, and South Asia as well. Uh, uh, I just want to discuss about scientific journals and country ranking. I have taken this data from magojr.com. Regarding number of scientific journals, scientific papers, citation, and its quality, first number in rank number one, United States. Then China is following USA. Then UK, Germany, Japan, France. Number seven, India, Italy, Canada, Australia. And where is Pakistan? You have seen 41. Pakistan rank is 41. Then Nepal 89. Pakistan is quite ahead than Nepal. So I believe that there are more scientific research, scientific papers, scientific activities in Pakistan than Nepal. Uh, Next slide. What is the situation of research and development in global context? I have taken, for example, USA, India, China, and Nepal. I think uh, USA USA has 70 times more budget on scientific research and development in India. India allocates 10% of the total budget on research and development. Now, China is emerging country. China has allocated 4 times more budget than India. Then Nepal is a developing country. From this year, Nepal has allocated 1% of total budget on research and development. Before, Nepal used to allocate just 0.3% budget, uh, 0.3% amount of total budget. I think Pakistan has allocated less than 1% of total budget, if I am not wrong. We can discuss later on. That's why how China is, doing more research, scientific innovation because Chinese government has highest priority on research and development. So this is just tentative figures. We have limitation of time. We are already 30 minutes late. So I just want to next slide. Scientific publication. While we are discussing about scientific publication globally, Nature, Science, The Lancet, plus one Cell. These are the major scientific publication. In India, Indian Journal Science Communication, it is popular one. So far in Pakistan, Pakistan Journal of Scientific and Industrial Journal, it could be popular in Pakistan. In case of Nepal, Nepal Journal of Science and Technology, it is for it is common forum for Nepali scientists publish their original research work. In case of Nepal, there is Nepal Academy of Science and Technology, which is autonomous body of scientific community in Nepal. There will be RICAS, NARC. These are the major government-owned research institution in Nepal. So this is the figure. There is some caution. Predatory journal. You might you might have you might have known about predatory journal. This is this is unethical. This journal does not follow ethical consideration, ethical values. Sometimes it might be pseudo journal. Not they are not doing. They are not following rules and regulation. Some ethical views to publish articles from the uh, writers, and we should be aware about predatory journal. As a science writer, as a science journalist, we should not make citation of predatory journal. While you are search from Google articles, Google search engine, you can find a long list of predatory journal. That's why you should not be confused while using the online resource. In case of open access journal, there might be some predatory journal. Uh, I have given some examples of some journals which are very popular like Nature, Science, The Lancet, Plus One. Cell. These journals are widely popular around the globe. So, uh, in addition to this journal, Nature, Science, Lancet, Plus One, Cell, there are many popular journals as well. But we should be aware. We can check whether the journals are uh, predatory or genuine journal. So we should be aware about it. Then uh, now I want to start next slide. It is about scientific papers versus popular science. How we can make scientific article understandable for general public. This is the major issues. Uh, I have no idea about Pakistan or South Asian countries, but in Nepal, researchers are not media friendly. They don't want disseminate knowledge through popular media outlet because researcher, scientists, they blame their journalists or science writer. They don't understand the core values of their research. It is big problem. It was big problem before 10 years. Then we started Nepal Forum of Science Journalists in 2014. Then we started interaction between journalists and scientific community. We have started Meet the Scientist program every month. That's why nowadays researcher scientists are more friendly than before. And journalists also, they are we have trained some journalists, science journalists. Now they can understand the language of researcher better than before. So what we are doing in Nepal, we are trying to bridge the gap between scientific community and journalists. So uh, uh, there is lack of interaction between science journalists and researcher, not sufficient interaction. But nowadays, in Nepal, in context of Nepal, we are gradually changing this trend. We can disseminate the knowledge of researcher, scientists in simple language, understandable language. That's why they are more close to journalists these days. Uh, there is one problem. Technical language is not easy to understand. What language researchers, scientists have used in their research article, it is very difficult to understand for the science journalists because all science journalists, they are not from science background. If some journalists, they are from science background, it's okay for them. They can understand. But some journalists, science journalists from the journalism background, journalism means that is general paper. Some journalists from social science. That's why it is very difficult to understand. That's why sometimes journalists cannot cover scientific issues properly. There might be many, errors. That's why scientists often blame that journalists cannot understand our paper. Then why do you speak to journalists? Why do you give some, you know, papers to journalists for publication? So it is, it creates, some wider gap between scientific community and journalists. That's why there are many challenges to make scientific paper understandable for general public in case of Nepal. Uh, in most of the cases, limited understanding of professional involved in popular science. Uh, Very few scientists, very few researchers, they will write popular science. They write articles. Then most of the scientists, what they have, what they have, mentioned in their paper, they don't want to disclose to the media. Uh, they are, self-satisfied. They don't want to interact with journalists, science writer. It is problem for Nepal. Problem in Nepal. Even they blame that journalists will make some distortion of their scientific values. They don't understand. It is, great challenge. Simplification of popular science writing in context of Nepal. I think it might be some problem, maybe Pakistan and other South Asian countries. Recently, I joined World Conference of Science Journalists in Colombia, South America. There also some journalists from Latin America, Africa, they felt same problems. Asia, they felt same problems. But some journalists I talk with some journalists from Europe, America, in comparison of Asian countries, Latin American countries, African countries, uh, you know, science journalism has fostered there. That's why they are not facing many problems as we have faced in South Asian countries. That's why there is a gap between scientific papers and popular science, means popular writing, scientific writing. Uh, we should be very clear about science communicators, science journalists, science writer. Science communicator, basically, they are engaged to translate complex scientific concept to the general people. Science communicators, they work in universities, some science centers, international agencies, scientific agencies as an independent consultant. All science communicators are not science journalists. Basically, science journalists, they are specialized in covering scientific research, science-related news, some features, investigative investigative stories as well. But science journalists and science communicator, they play vital role in bridging the gap between scientific community and general people. Because science communicator, they you know they have specialization in translating complex scientific manuscript to the general people, general public. Is a employee of science communicator in the university, science center, international development agencies. They will make specific contribution to make scientific research, to bring scientific research in understandable language. And science journalists, they are working in different media, newspaper, online media, television, and they write scientific news, scientific article for the general people. They will find science angle in news and article. Hello, host, can you hear me?
Yes, I can definitely hear.
Okay. So next one, science writer. Science writer basically they will produce scientific content. Uh, Science writer writes different types of science articles is a form of books, magazine, blogs, website. So, science communicators, science journalists, science writers are interrelated, but their responsibility is little bit different. Science communicator, science journalist, science writer, they are making contribution to bridge gap between scientific community and communication, scientific community and general people, general public. Next one, popular content, popular science. Basically, popular science designed for general mass, simple and on ambiguous language means it's understandable language. Newspaper, magazine, articles, book, film, documentaries, multimedia, all are popular content. Targeted audience with have little or no science background. Basically, science writing for the general people. They don't have scientific background. Okay, so it should be understandable for general people. Science writers, science journalists, they involve in popular content. They can use metaphors to make scientific paper uh, easier for the general people, which makes difficult scientific concept easier to understand. And in popular content, sometimes there will be some scientific controversies, debate as well. Because in case of science, there might be some pseudoscience. In case of COVID-19, whatever, I think in Nepal also, there were different types of rumors in COVID-19 pandemic regarding COVID-19. There were misinformation, some disinformation, some rumors. Those are called pseudoscience as well. That's why in that case also, science writer can cover those issues in simple, easier, and understandable language. Is popular science or science journalism similar? Basically, popular science is more extensive, widespread in the form of articles, books, films. But in case of science journalism, basically, in science journalism, there will be science journalism mainly focus on latest scientific issues, latest scientific research, scientific papers, and science journalism based on news articles, opinion articles, analysis, investigative pieces as well. That's why, by nature, there will be differences between popular science and science journalism. Role of science journalists. Science journalists should report on scientific discoveries, some controversies, breakthroughs. Science journalists should conduct interview with scientists, researcher, other expert. Then major thing is fact checking. Why science journalist is different than general journalists? In Nepal, most of the general journalists sometimes they are giving some misinformation, mainly in the social media, YouTube. They just want to increase their viewers. That's why, without fact checking, some journalists, not all, might have disseminate misinformation. At that time, what can science journalists do? Main responsibility is fact checking to ensure accuracy and credibility of the news. Then science journalists, as I already mentioned, science journalists can translate complex scientific concept into understandable language. for the general public. And science journalists will cover science related policy, some regulatory issues. Then science journalists always keeps up to date with the latest scientific research and development. So science journalists plays vital role to bridge scientific community and general people. Next one, there are many issues uh, science journalist and science writer can cover as a part of popular writing. There might be climate change, environmental science, biology, biotechnology, chemistry, material science, energy and renewable technologies, health and medicine, neuroscience, psychology, physics, engineering, science policy, science diplomacy, technology, innovation, astronomy, space exploration, science and society, science education. So I think choose any scientific issues, and after some years they might be expert in their respective field. For example, I basically interested on environmental health, public health, and climate change. In the recent time, I am interested on neuroscience as well. How neuroscience, how what could be the neuroscience of uh, you know our daily activities, how neuroscience is related with psychology. But basically, I am interested on environmental health, public health, and climate change. So you can choose any of these topics and you can start. You can consult with expert, scientist, your senior journalist, science writer, science journalist. So they maybe they may help you in various aspects. And this is very useful book, resource for science writing, the craft of science writing. This is collection of different articles written by well-known science journalists around the globe. And this book is edited by Siri Carpenter. She is editor-in-chief of Open Notebook. This book, uh, I think this book might be available in Pakistan or not. I have no idea. We brought this book from USA for our members. Then we distributed to our members. Before 6 months, we had also started science journalism mentorship program. There were 16 participants from Nepal. So this book in a hard copy, we just brought hard copy from USA. But the craft of science writing, this book available, some articles available in uh, online as well. If you go through the open book dot org or .com. I'm little bit confused. You try for both, and you can get some articles very interesting, very useful for you, really interesting. And most of the journalists, they have shared their personal experience in their article. How to start science writing, how to find science angle in the stories, process of fact checking, interview with scientists as well. So I recommend this book. I found this book very useful, not only for the beginners, it is useful for a mid-career journalist like me as well. Because uh, in the beginning, I did not started my journalism career as a science journalist. In the beginning, I was a general journalist. Then after 15 years, I started my career as a science journalist. While I spent more than 15 years as a general journalist. I used to cover at that time. I used to cover politics, education, health, sometime entertainment as well. But since 2014, it is more than one decade. Sorry, about one decade. I am more focused on science writing. Before I was a general journalist. I was interested on science writing, but in my newsroom there were not dedicated assignment for the journalist. As a science journalist, as a environment journalist, it is, I think, problem of South Asian countries. Some media house, they can uh, they can appoint science journalists, environment journalists nowadays, but in our time it was very difficult to work as a independent science journalist in mainstream media. So I just want to recommend this book. Science journalism in Nepal and NFSJ. Nepal Forum of Science Journalists established January 27, 2014. Uh, 2070 BS MAC 13. It is Nepali date. Uh, Nepal Forum of Science Journalists is Member Association of World Federation of Science Journalists, February 9, 2017. NFSJ is member of WFSJ since February 9, 2017. What does NFSJ do? We are conducting various programs to simplify science for the public. There are we have conducted training, seminar, workshop, boot camp. Boot camp means last year we conducted Himalayan climate boot camp in the Everest region. Uh, we had some journalists from India, Nepal, and Bangladesh. We are planning next edition of boot camp. It might be in this year September or next year April. It may be uh, September 2023